Sponsored by Surfshark VPN. Click on the link in the description and enter promo code Undecided for 83% off and 3 extra months for free. The Porsche Taycan made a splash when it was first released at the end of 2019. It was one of the first credible potential competitors to Tesla's reign over the EV world. But is it really a competitor to Tesla at all? After driving it for the past couple of days, I don't think it is. And it doesn't have to be. I'm Matt Ferrell. Welcome to Undecided. Right off the bat, I need to thank Kevin Song for lending me his Porsche Taycan 4S for this review. He's the owner of Craft Detailing in Dedham, Massachusetts, which is where I got my Model 3 wrapped and ceramic coated. So it shouldn't be a surprise that this has a beautiful stealth wrap on it. It looks good on camera and even better in person. Now, I'm not a traditional car guy. I'm an EV guy. I'm all in on electrifying our transportation. So when Porsche announced the Taycan, it really caught my eye, but I did have some issues with it. Everyone, including Porsche, was comparing it to the Tesla Model S, including me. Everyone talked about this as the first real competitor to Tesla, but that always felt wrong to me. We're talking about a car that starts at around $104,000 and goes up beyond $185,000. Now, I don't care how good the car is, that's going to be a very small seller to a very particular audience. And that's where I think a lot of people went wrong with the comparison with Tesla. It's a little strange to compare a car that starts at around $70,000 and ends right around where the Taycan starts. So what do you get for that huge chunk of change? Well, if you like Porsche, you get a Porsche, except it's just an EV. That in itself is not insignificant for a lot of people. It's a beautiful car, and the fit and finish is spectacular, and that shouldn't be a surprise. On the outside of the car, you get some pretty nice details, like a charging port on both sides of the car. On one side is AC only, the other side is AC and DC fast charging. Necessary to have two? No, but it's a nice touch. On most EVs, the charging port door swings out, but not here. With a swipe of the finger under the side camera, it slides up inside the car like some kind of spaceship airlock opening up. Is that necessary? No, but it's a nice touch. Opening the door is also interesting. If you have a key fob on you, when you touch the door handle, it pops out from the car so that you can open it up. It's somewhat similar to the Model S. And when you drive or relock the car, they automatically retract, but you can also lock the car up by just touching this part of the handle. Again, not necessary, but it's a nice touch. No pun intended. The trunk also has a very obvious button to open it. Now, this is something that I typically hate about every other car that's out there. They always hide the button somewhere under the lip, so sometimes you find it yourself or you miss it a little bit. This one is obvious. Press it and the power lift gate opens up. To close it back up, there are two buttons on the inside. One closes the trunk, the other closes the trunk and locks the car. Why two buttons? Why not just have a double tap on a single button for the same behavior? I guess for this kind of money, it doesn't really matter. And while we're back here, the rear view camera has an interesting add-on. It has this mini spray jet that cleans it off if it gets dirty. Again, it's a really nice touch. Inside the car, the trend of top-notch fit and finish continues. Beautiful stitching and materials, it's clearly a luxury car. At this point, I'm starting to feel like John Hammond from Jurassic Park, because they clearly spared no expense. As a Tesla Model 3 owner, the inside of this car couldn't be more different. One is minimalist and forward-looking towards a self-driving future. This one is all about customization and tailoring to the driver's experience. Tons of switches and levers and buttons all over the cabin, both physical and digital. The screens are the most prominent aspect from this design, with 4 of them across the dash, one right behind the wheel, which I know a lot of people seem to prefer, another one right above the center console, one on the center console, and then one in front of the passenger seat too. And that one only turns on if there's somebody sitting in the passenger seat. The screens are absolutely incredible. You can't tell where the screen starts and where it finishes. The borders of the screens and the edge of the monitors, they all just kind of blend together. It gives it a very magical and futuristic look, both in a good way and a bad way. The good is that you can tailor the screen to do pretty much whatever you want. The bad, they kind of over-engineered the UI and made it more confusing than it needs to be. The screen that's right behind the wheel can be configured to do pretty much whatever you want it to do. You can select which one of the 3/3 that you want to configure. You can go to a map, an extended map. You can do a reduced view, which only shows you the speedometer and nothing else on the screen. On the right third, you can choose between things like the navigation directions, sport drive, drive modes, the media that's playing. And then if you go over to the left third, traffic signs, the G-force meter to show you the G-forces as you're driving. There's a lot of options and different ways that you can configure this that can work for pretty much anybody. The center two screens on the center console and right above it, they work together as a tandem pair. And they both do what you'd probably expect. They include all the infotainment features from things like terrestrial radio to Sirius XM. It even has Apple CarPlay, which is kind of amazing. I had never used it before. I just plugged in my phone, and after a couple of taps, my CarPlay-enabled apps were accessible on the screen. Having my favorite podcast app, which is Overcast, working directly on the car's UI is awesome. I wish I had something like this in my Tesla. Now, shameless plug, you should check out my podcast that I do with my brother, Still to be Determined. It's related directly to this show. Anyway, you can get the other car settings here as well. The lower screen is kind of like a shortcut screen with touch controls that also controls the top screen. The screen has haptic feedback when you press down on it, and I actually like that feature a lot. It takes a little more pressure to register the tap than I'd like, but having physical feedback is a nice confirmation of a successful tap. The controls for the HVAC system are here too, but it's on the top screen that you can redirect the control for the air vents where you're directing the air. And for any Model 3 or Model Y owners out there, this is gonna look very familiar. But I find it kind of odd that the car has what look like traditional air vents across the dash, but yet there's no like levers or switches directly on the vents, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Why not just add a lever there for you to control the direction? I guess they thought they were sparing no expense. Now, I don't think they're implemented as nicely as Tesla's, since it's a little buried in the menus, but once you're there, they have some really nice pre-configured settings to focus the flow on the driver and the passengers, or to diffuse it throughout the cabin. You can, of course, completely customize it any way you want. The lower screen also acts as a trackpad for the upper screen. Why? I have no idea. Your finger is only inches away from the other screen, so there's less thinking involved to just reach up and tap whatever you want, versus having to navigate a disconnected highlight across the interface on a different screen. Two methods to achieve the same thing. Why? I guess they spared no expense. From this screen, you can also quickly access your battery charge information, as well as your car button to quickly get controls for the trunk and the charge ports. But one of the weirder things is that you can handwrite your destination address on this screen instead of typing your address into the top screen when using the navigation system. Why they spent time building that out when it's easier to use the voice controls to enter address hands-free? Again, I have no idea, but they spared no expense. One of the weirder controls is this gear switch, or lever. I'm not sure what to call this thing. But instead of using one of the stalks for a gear selector or including something on the center console, they created this oddly shaped thing that you flick up and down to go between drive, neutral, and reverse. And there's a separate button right next to it for park. And what's really weird about this design is that it's right behind the wheel. I can't see it unless I lean over to the right. It's really odd. Once you know it's there and how it works, you can get used to it, but it's weird. And there's even some buttons that run along the edge of the screen behind the steering wheel for things like your lights, your running lights, your fog lights. It's pretty nice. The seats are very comfortable and supportive, which is what you'd expect in a sports car. And they include all of the usual adjustments and controls for getting it set just the way you like. And the back seats are very similar in design. But remember, this is a sports car. I would not consider this a family sedan by any stretch. The cabin is roomy. I'm 6'1" and I have plenty of headroom and leg room, so I'm very comfortable. The back seats aren't the most spacious, but I can comfortably fit back there. But looking back to the trunk for a second, it's small. If you're a golfer, I think it might be challenging to get your set of clubs back there. And just like Tesla, there's a secret sub-trunk, but unlike something like the Tesla Model 3, it's very, very small. I'm not sure what you could fit in there. And jumping back to the front, it's also surprisingly small considering how big the front of the car is. But how does it drive? Before I get into that though, I'd like to thank Surfshark for sponsoring this video. Now I know we're not traveling much right now, well, unless you're driving a Porsche around like a crazy man, but I still like to use a VPN when I want to protect my privacy online. Now, Surfshark encrypts all of the data that you send over the internet, so your passwords, messages, photos, videos, and whatever you're doing online stays private. A lot of online services use some pretty sophisticated commercial targeting and tracking, and a VPN can protect you from that. With Surfshark's Clean Web, it will block ads, trackers, and malicious websites, making it safer to use the internet even at home. One of the best parts of Surfshark is that it's easy to set up and use on all of your devices, whether that's iPhone or Android, Mac or PC. Use my code to get 83% off plus 3 extra months for free. Surfshark offers 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's no risk to try it out for yourself. Link in the description below, and thanks to Surfshark and to all of you for supporting the channel. So how does it drive? Well, in a word, it's amazing. It shouldn't be a surprise that a Porsche is fun to drive, but the Taycan is a blast. It's got that very torquey kick to it that you expect from an EV, but with all the available customizations that you can do with the drivetrain and the suspension, you can really dial this in to any style of driving that you want. Put the car into normal and ranged mode and you'll get better range along with a smoother ride. Put it in Sport Plus and lower the ride height and you feel very connected to the road. It corners so smoothly. There's hardly any sway to the car at all, which is incredible given that this thing weighs more than a Model S, but it doesn't feel like a heavy car. Then there's this. That fake electronic acceleration noise is just weird. I understand why they would put something like that in the car, because people feel connected to their cars with their motors and they know when to shift and downshift, but this is an EV. You don't have or need that. It makes different sounds that you'll learn over time. To add something artificial like that in makes no sense. It's just weird. Thankfully, you can turn it off in the system menus, but it comes on by default when you put the car into like sport mode. And aside from that, the cabin is very quiet. And that brings me to my one big disappointment in how this car drives: the regen braking. Why, Porsche? Why don't you just give an option for more robust regen braking? By default, it's turned off, which I can kind of get for a car that's designed for more traditional die-hard car fans that are out there. When you first get in the car to drive it, it feels like it's tuned to replicate the feeling of driving a gasoline car. Take your foot off the accelerator and it keeps coasting. When sitting at a stoplight and you take your foot off the brake, the car starts to inch forward. I get it. But when you turn on regenerative braking, it barely feels like it's doing anything at all. Why not have a few options for the die-hard EV fans out there? For daily driving, I've gotten so used to one-pedal driving in my Model 3, it's hard to go back now. I really prefer it. And that brings me back to my point that this car isn't a true competitor to Tesla. It's a car tuned to a different audience from Tesla. While I'm not the audience, I can see who they're talking to and can recognize that they're nailing it. Porsche knows exactly who they're talking to. They know who their customer is and what they want, and they're delivering it to them in the Taycan. Not everyone wants a minimalist design with one-pedal driving in a car that will eventually drive itself. I do, but I know not everyone else does. Some prefer the act of driving and feeling connected to the road, and in the case of the Taycan, doing it in luxury. This isn't a car for everyone, it's a car for a very specific kind of person, and it really nails it. One of my biggest complaints about the Taycan when it was first announced was the battery efficiency. There's no other way to say it, but it's horrible. The Model S is hitting 400 miles of range on a 100 kilowatt-hour battery pack. The Taycan 4S with the 93.4 kilowatt-hour performance battery is around 260 miles on a good day. Bjorn Nyland did a range test of this model and actually got around 360 miles or 579 kilometers in ideal conditions. And at faster speeds, he got around 264 miles or 425 kilometers. It's impressive, but a long way off from Tesla Model S territory. But I don't think it really matters for the audience that Porsche is talking to. Can and should they do better with efficiency? Absolutely, and I hope they do in time. But again, consider the customer that they're trying to reach. But the efficiency leads me to the Achilles heel of the Taycan experience: charging infrastructure. When Kevin handed the car off to me, he said the worst thing about the car was the charging network. Now, I'm going to be doing a separate video on this, so be sure to subscribe to not miss out on that. But the state of non-Tesla chargers is a problem. There's a much higher rate of arriving at a charging location to find that many of the chargers aren't working, or the prices that they charge are really expensive compared to the supercharger network. And for the Taycan specifically, Porsche touted the fast charging capabilities of the car, but finding fast chargers capable of coming anywhere close to that are very difficult to find. So what do I think of the Porsche Taycan overall? I really like it. I've been having so much fun driving this and really appreciate all of the we spared no expense to the fit and finish of the car. It's crazy expensive, but it's a car that knows who its audience is and speaking directly to them in their own language. And on that, I have to tip my hat to Porsche. But would I buy one? No, I'm not the audience for this car, but I'm really glad that it exists. The more people we can get interested in EVs, the better. Now jump into the comments and let me know what you think of the Taycan. Is it an EV that you're interested in? And as always, a special thank you to all my patrons. All of your support is really helping make these videos possible. If you like this video, be sure to check out one of the ones I have linked to right here. And be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell if you think I've earned it. And as always, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.